Hi everybody. So I got a request when showing the Mother's Day cards to show how I made this one. It's actually pretty simple. So we're going to get into it. It is a 5x7 full-size card. I don't have any more of this paper. I believe it's close to my heart paper, but any paper out of your stash which has a nice pattern to it will work. I mean, any paper at all would work. I like scrapbook paper that's a little thicker. You really don't want the thinner paper because of the glossy accents we're going to put on the top. So we're going to start with our card base. So this is a normal 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and we're going to cut it to 7 by 10. So I have my handy dandy large tonic guillotine slicer here, paper trimmer. So we're going to cut it to 10 and then 7. And you want a heavy piece of cardstock for this. And we are going to use our score buddy and score this at the 5. Now, notice my paper is a little larger than the score buddy, so I'm going to go halfway down and then flip my paper over and then go back. Okay, so now our card base is ready. Now what I've done is I've taken a piece of pattern paper, and this is SEI paper close to with all my heart. I did find it on scrapbook.com. It is now on clearance for $6.99. Oh, sorry. It says this item has been discontinued. I just saw that. I will see if I can find it somewhere else and link it for you. It is an older paper pack. I did get it from my stash. But again, just any kind of decorative paper, and I've cut a piece of that paper to 5 by 7. So now's the fun part. We are taking the Cat Scrappiness dies, large alpha dies, and I'll link the website for this. They're and taking the M and the O, and I first started with the O and laid it out in the middle, and then put the M next to it and just made sure that it was where I wanted it. Okay, just use a little washi tape or scotch tape, or sorry, it's Post-it tape to hold it in place. Now, I did want to mention I've been using my Gemini a lot. This is the only cutting plate. Now, my plate has started to warp. It's not a problem. It was actually warped worse than this. So when it starts to warp, I just start to put everything on the side that's curved in and keep running it through the machine, and it's already starting to flatten itself back out. Okay. And you're supposed to put the paper on the bottom and put your dies on top. I don't like to do it that way. You can do it any way you want. What I do is I put a little, like I said, Post-it tape on my dies. Then I put the magnetic shim down. Then the milky plate, and then the other cutting plate. So we're going to run that through the Gemini real quick. And on that note, HSN has the Gemini Junior accessories back in stock. So you get this bag and you get all the cutting plates, and I want to say $40. So I did pick that up this week as well, if you do have the Gemini Junior. All right, so then what we're going to do is we are going to reposition the M. Very carefully take that out because we want everything intact. And if you wanted to be precise, you could measure it and draw pencil lines. I'm lazy, so I just eyeball it. All right, and one more pass through. Count to 10. All right, and you want to keep all of your pieces because this is going to help us line up the card now. So we're going to now take the card base and we are going to put a little bit of adhesive on the back of the center of the O. And we're going to line up, and because we made this 5 by 7, it's pretty easy. You want it to go all the way to the edge. There's no border. Oops. And we want to line that O up first. So put it back into place, and now put the center in. And look at your pattern so that you can line it up exact. Okay, and then we're going to pull the O back out, and now we want to glue down the background. And I'm just using liquid glue because tape runner doesn't always get into the tiny pieces, the edges. Alright, and then we're just going to put a couple of stamping blocks on there and let that dry a second. Okay, so while that's drying or setting in place, we are going to take the letters, and I have some foam strips here from Stampin' Up. And I love these for shaker cards, but they're just long foam strips. And we're going to put those onto our letters. Now I tried to put mine in the center, and I'll tell you why, because when we put the glossy accents on there, it does kind of weigh the letters down a little bit, and so that's why the stronger the paper, the better it is for this method, the thicker the cardstock is. You don't want to use a flimsy paper. Okay, so ideally you would do that with all of the letters, M-O-M there. And then you're going to bring your card back in, figure out where that letter goes. So this one goes here. You're going to then pull the backing off. You're going to puzzle piece that back in. Okay, so now the M is raised from the paper and it gives it some dimension. Okay, now you can leave it like that. It looks great. Throw some sequins on there. I took it up a notch by taking some glossy accents. So some of the different brands that are out there are Original Glossy Accents. Okay, which I did a video on this a few years back, and recently did a video showing how glossy accents and how the rest of these dry. And there was a huge debate on Nuvo and Nuvo drops, but you can see here that all of these are all pretty much the same. So you have glossy accents, you have 3D crystal lacquer, and you have Close to My Heart liquid glass. These are all the same. They do dry, all of them, with a slight tint to them. You're never going to notice unless you put it directly on white paper. Nuvo Drops does dry clear, but you can see there that it cracks. And I am not the only one that's had this problem. Nuvo drops do not do well when they go on thick. They're very, they do better when they're a thinner. So I would recommend not using Nuvo Morning Dew for this. I would recommend using Glossy Accents, and they're not colored because they're old. They're colored because that's just the type of formula they are. They still work great. You don't have to worry about them getting old and turning gross. But anyway, so then you're just going to take this, and what's nice about Glossy Accents is it's like self-doming. So use the little one here. So what you're going to do is very carefully is kind of start at the edge, if you have one that doesn't have an air bubble in it. There we go. And you're just going to kind of line the area. And because it's self-doming, it, as long as you don't go right over the edge, it will never fall off the edge. So I just go right to the edge of the paper and keep moving. And essentially what you're doing is you're putting like an epoxy or an acrylic cover over the top of your letter. You just want to look it over, and any place that you have air bubbles, you just want to take a little pin and kind of poke those bubbles. And just look it over and make sure it looks pretty even. If there's any spots where you think that it's a little light, you can very carefully go in there while it's wet and add a little more of the product. You don't want to add any more if it's dry, because it will cause like this layered effect. So there you go. And you just want to set this aside on a flat surface to dry. Now if your card starts to lift and come open, just take an acrylic block and hold it down, and just make sure it's on a flat surface. And I would give it a few hours, if not overnight, to dry. You don't want to touch the letters. So you want to make sure they're all glued in place though before you put the Glossy Accents on. And I would start from the left and move my way to the right if you're right-handed, and if you're left-handed, I would go from the left and move my way to the right so that you don't have your hand touching that. And the reason I recommend doing it while it's on the card is, again, because the Glossy Accents will weigh down the card a little bit. You don't want to put them on afterwards and then it causes the letters to kind of move and then try to put them onto the card, because it might adjust the way that it fits, if that makes any sense. So there you go, guys. And then after that's dried, I'm just going to put this aside. I added some clear sequins to finish it off, and then you have a nice layered card for mom. Oh, I did also, which I didn't do on this example, but on this one, I did take some Wink of Stella, some aqua shimmer, and put that on the letters before I put the gloss on it. It's kind of hard to see because the gloss overpowers it here. This paper already has a kind of a shimmer to it, so I didn't do it on that one. But that's another idea if you're using a flat cardstock and want to give it some more. So there you go, guys. There's my Mother's Day card with some dimension by request. If you guys have any questions about anything, please post them down below, and I will try to link where all of these items came from. Again, the paper was discontinued on the one I just did. I'll check to see if the paper's still available for this one. And thanks for watching. Keep on stamping. Bye.